Hey everybody, I am recording today. I want to do a quick video. I did a post about a week or two ago, 2 weeks ago it looks like, about story sticks, asking on LinkedIn if anybody uses them or had used them or want to share their story. I got some responses and replies here. I will link this post down in notes of this video, but looking to do a series about how millwork and architectural woodwork was done before we had engineers like we do today. So today in the millwork world we have dedicated department of drafters and engineers that use CAD software, CAM software for programming for CNCs and machines and doing detailed CAD drawings. And so, you know, today you might get something along the lines of shop drawings like this. And then behind this there's actually products with parts and cut lists that'll be produced to tell the shop how to actually make these products. But back in the time before this world, there were other ways to accomplish this. You know, so you might get a drawing similar to this, but then it was up to the guys on the bench to convert this into cut lists and parts that then could be assembled. And so one of the primary tools that was utilized to get there was story sticks. And so what is a story stick? Well, first I want to actually share another video I found, and I will link directly to this as well. It's from a channel called Small Workshop Guy, and he illustrates here an example of one story stick that he used. So let me play this little clip and talk about it for a minute.
This is a real live cabinet. It's going to be a router table cabinet, and I'm going to have a multitude of drawers. And so I have the plans that I've created in SketchUp and built the carcass, and now maybe I got something off on the carcass. And so the real world is different from the intended plans. So I mark off a storyboard according to the plans, and then I can put that in the real world case carcass or cabinet carcass and see if things are going to work out. So in this case, I wanted to have this to be 11 3/8, and then 1/16, and then 3/4, and then 4 1/4, and then 1/16, and 3/4, 4
So in this example, you can actually see how this woodworker has taken a piece of wood and marked out on that piece of wood each exact measurement for the location of parts, the thickness of parts, even the gap between what looks like to be a door or a drawer front and a stretcher maybe, and so at full scale. And so what this does is takes, you know, for example, if you had drawings like this, and if this were the cabinet he was talking about, at this detail, you know, we can even go to the section, but if this is a printed drawing, you know, that level of detail, here we have dimensions for them, but you can't take a tape measure and pull measurements. And so what a story stick does is it allows a woodworker to take this cabinet, lay it out full scale to where they can actually pull measurements. And if you imagine, if you've got a story stick that represents the side of this cabinet, one, you can put it in place and actually see if what you're doing lines up. But two, you can actually pull measurements that don't exist on the drawings. For example, I could hook the bottom of the cabinet on the story stick. So the imaginary bottom of the cabinet, I can hook it and pull to any one of these stretchers, for example, or pull to the bottom of the top drawer and actually lay out exact measurements beyond what's just detailed here. So what that video illustrated was one example of a story stick. It can be laid out in a number of ways. For example, a lot of people will lay out a story stick if they're building this elevation of cabinets. One, in the past, this might have been, you know, rather than frameless, might have been face frame, might have been a continuous face frame across the whole elevation. So a story stick would give you the opportunity though to lay out, you know, the entire plan view of all the cabinets adjacent to each other. So I could actually lay out on a story stick the edge, outside edge of my cabinet, the inside face of the side, each of these two sides that would be here behind each other, next to each other. So you could actually hook and pull measurements across the entire elevation. And then within that, you can lay out things like your drawer slides, your locks, your pulls, your hinges, any number of things that you might need to be able to take measurements from. Now, why is this valuable? Why would I need to do that if I have these drawings? Well, like I said before, you can pull measurements that maybe don't exist on here, but if you imagine before CAM software and engineering software like Microvellum, Cabinet Vision, and even before that, without the ability of an engineer making their cut lists for you, your bench builders, your cabinet builders were the ones making the actual cut lists. So they would need from this to be able to actually make a list of parts to literally cut on the saw. That's where the name cut list comes from. It's a list that you're cutting from. And so they need to know what is this bottom dimension, you know, width and length. What is my cabinet side? And so from that, you can actually make your story stick to give you every possible cut dimension you might need. So on the story stick, they would actually lay out what is my depth of my dado. What gap am I going to leave in that depth that is going to be the difference between my dado and my cut part. And so you could actually accommodate for material thicknesses and then pull measurements every individual part on your story stick. So your story stick is probably going to have laid out your front plan detail. And so let's go ahead and actually map out what that might look like. So imagine I've got a long piece of wood here. That's my story stick. And so say I'm using it to lay out this elevation, this plan detail. So on it, I would actually go and map out, okay, I've got a cabinet side. So I might put a line here for the outside edge of my carcass. And then I'm going to do an inside face of my cabinet side. And then I might actually do the edge of my door with that reveal. So I might have a 1/16 gap there and then a 3/4 side. So then I'm going to map the next cabinet side. So here's the line between two cabinets. And then I'm going to have this cabinet side and this cabinet side. So 3/4 and 3/4. And then I might have my doors. So you can map all these things out with notes, full scale on your story stick. So then here I might say, okay, the actual end of my story stick, I might cut to the end of the cabinet. So then I can take a tape measure, hook it on the end of my board and pull to any of these measurements. On the opposite edge of this story stick then, so you could go and lay all this out all the way across, right? I might use the same story stick for multiple layouts. So then I might take this and lay out on this edge my upper cabinets. So then I could take it up here and do the same thing up here, so I could have a single story stick for my uppers and my base cabinets. And then say on this cabinet, I want to lay out my upper cabinets, and you see over here it's going to be the same maybe, but then I get over here and I now have a different set of markings for these cabinet sides. So then I'm going to lay out my two sides. I might show my edge of my doors with my reveal there. I might show the edge of the doors here in the middle and go all the way down. And so this gives you a stick that tells the story of all the parts of your cabinet. And from there you can actually take measurements. For example, okay, now I need to know what my top and bottom are, which is the inside width that needs to go between these two sides. So now I can actually pull a measurement and say, okay, my cut size for my top and bottom is the distance between these two sides, which I've laid out. In my back, for example, I might actually dado my backs in, so I might show my back here like this, a little more clear, so I could actually lay out my exact dimensions of my back dado and take measurements of what my back width would be, accounting for that. Story stick is a really valuable and easy way to lay out your entire woodworking project, and you can do it by product, by elevation, use it in a number of ways to tell the story of the parts, and then from there pull measurements to get an accurate cut list. So if you or anybody you know uses story sticks, I'd love for you to share them with us, or tell us the story in the comments here. And if you found this valuable, it would be appreciative if you gave it a like and shared this video. Thanks.